So first of all, I want to begin with Hakarat Tov. Hakarat Tov in Hebrew literally means recognizing the good, or in English, gratitude. So I want to thank Ambassador Yael Vilan, Alex, Deputy Ambassador that is seated here, and Daniela from the Israel Embassy in Serbia for inviting me to come to speak with you today, and also to Color Media Communications and Boyana for this important conference, the Women's CEO Summit. I was asked to share a bit of my world with you as a woman, an entrepreneur, and a co-founder. Preparing for today, I thought about my journey and what's the main thread that runs through it that might be of interest to you and that I'd like to share with you today. And I want to begin with a dream and a challenge. So this is me. In 2018, I climbed, does anybody recognize what it is? It's a famous mountain. Okay, so this is your next challenge. I climbed the Olympus with my husband and 2 of my 3 boys. Interestingly, the climb up was not so difficult, but getting down was perhaps the biggest challenge I ever faced. I'm not a mountain climber, not a professional one anyway, but my Mount Olympus journey envelopes many similarities to the challenges women take upon themselves, charting unmarked ground on a daily basis, which I'm sure each of you does. Surprisingly, we're still doing that well into the 21st century. Side note, and this is the first side note, there'll be another one because I'm very associative. For those of you who have yet to climb it, and from the responses that nobody recognized, you all have yet to climb it, beware. The path on the Olympus is totally unclear. And just as in life, we have to choose wisely to stay alive and to weather the elements. And ultimately, the paths that we choose will determine the paths that we forge. I always like to get inspiration and learn from best practices. So I hope that in this way, I may share my experiences and those may help you with yours. But my experience shows me that the best motivator of all, in life and in business, is sense of purpose. Ooh. So that's an agreement, right? It's sense of purpose, and where do we find that sense of purpose? So this man, Professor Michal Lebenthal, has a very clear why. In the search for the answers during his work, he put the emphasis on finding the right questions. He chose to study medicine out of a true devotion to the health of others and especially to the lives of children. He specialized in the field of pediatric gastroenterology, which he founded. His life's work was dedicated to facing the challenge of improving the health of children under the age of 5, which during the time that he worked, 5 million children every year died from malnutrition and gastrointestinal disease. And as a result, he changed the course of history regarding their futures. I am proud to say that this man is my father. My parents taught me, among other things, to grow in the direction of my questions. This mindset is one that keeps me constantly curious and creating all the time. And of course, continually learning. Apart from my formal education, which you can see spans across 3 continents, so far, I try to learn something new every day. My higher education began at Bryn Mawr, and for those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's a women's college. And did you know that in the US, despite there being so many universities, most of them started off as male. And Bryn Mawr was one of the first colleges to be a women's college. It's a sister school of the Ivy League schools. Harvard has Radcliffe, Vassar, Yale, as you know, and Bryn Mawr, UPenn. So in 1990, when I began my university studies, and now you know how old I am, and of course, I was looking at a feminist-based place. I was certain that by 2020, well, definitely by 2024, the world would be a different place for women. But as you just heard in the previous panel, it still isn't. So I set my purpose on changing that. And how can one person, one woman, change the world? Well, I can't alone. And that's what I'm going to tell you about. So the reality is very, very far from that. The deeper I dug into many fields, I entered some of which I want to share with you. I discovered the need for systems change, a deep-rooted systems change. This is one of the things that I teach at universities in Israel and abroad, merging design and systems thinking and impact entrepreneurship. And what is that impact entrepreneurship? I'm passionate about igniting ideas and mentoring change makers. And part of your job as women CEOs looking ahead is to mentor others, is hand on hand, because we find that mentorship is the biggest change maker of all. My personal path began in the public sector, where I served as a senior official in the Ministry of Aliyah and Integration as a top lawyer. So actually, I've been to the public sector, I've been to the private sector. I speak several languages of discussion, and those of you that come from the private sector understand how different the public one is and vice versa. In fact, they don't speak the same language. So through my 18 years there, as a top lawyer in the field, I'm also a lawyer, happens. And through my 18 years there, the majority of the employees in the ministry were female. The Ministry of Aliyah and Integration, that's the Jewish star with the colors. But the C-suite, guess what it was dominated by? Men. So I find myself wondering time and time again, how do you break the boys' club? How many times do you arrive to a panel only to discover that it's a manel? Right? We can only change what we know and see. If there are not enough women in high positions helping out one another, the boys' club is going to be really hard to enter. And the same holds true for investments. Deloitte just published in March, a report that found that 90% of investment decisions are made by men. 90%. To change that, what do we need? More women investors. To change that, what do we need? More women studying relevant things like finance, etc. Otherwise, how are we going to have people investing in women? We need more women almost everywhere. So in a changing job market that is moving towards automation and digitation, together with my co-founder, Michal Shalem, and by the way, I find that it's always good to work in a team. I think women get that, right? It's good to work in a team and in partnerships. That's something that helps us grow. So our company, Think Creative, reverse engineered what the skills and capabilities that the high-tech sector needs today. We actually looked at, there's this huge gap of people working in the high-tech field in Israel. I don't know how it is in Serbia, but I know that worldwide there's a gap of relevant people. And we sat with a C-suite in the best companies, those that are unicorns and decacorns, like Monday, Checkpoint, Wix. And we asked them, what would they need? How would they bridge the qualified employees that they're looking for? How could we increase the talent pool in the high-tech industry? Well, we found a long list of needed interventions to break the barriers that the current system actually perpetuates. Surprise. And it's always starting with education, because education is the core of everything. And we found that in education, the workforce, the tech sector, everywhere, in Israel, the tech sector is less than 30% women. Their women are still not integrated enough. And the interesting thing is how easy it is to tap into these resources, but still it's not being done sufficiently enough. But what if we approach the workforce from early education to longevity? What if we look at where the unmet needs are and we solve for them, and how could we ensure a smooth and sustainable sequence? Unraveling complexity requires seeing the whole picture and solving for it. This means we can't work in silos. If I give you an exercise to think for a second, what one thing in this world happens on its own with nothing else? It's a very hard task. I'll be happy the next time I'm in Serbia if you have an answer. I can tell you that there isn't one thing, because 21st century is complex and complexity requires working together. So actually, systemic change requires collaboration and innovation. And this is going to lead to our second company. So you may be wondering, why did she open a second company? Wasn't one enough? And actually, my entrepreneurial DNA is constantly thinking about the next thing, finding problems to solve. So I told you that I started in the public sector. And after nearly 2 decades there, the transition to the private one is kind of like a child in a candy store. Everything was interesting. I wanted to touch, there were so many problems and so many things to solve. And law, as it is something, it's a reactive profession. We're always reacting. And I really wanted to do something that would go 0 to 1. I wanted to initiate. And those of you that are in the business world know this. It's really taking something and moving it and making a difference to build. So I left something certain, a tenured position, a high position in the ministry, for a vast unknown. Pretty crazy, right? My dad was like, why don't you go be a judge? I didn't want to be a judge. And my mom was like, go after your dreams. And so I did. So knowing that my dream was to make impactful change for women together with a team, and as a very curious person, I kept exploring. And remember, I told you there'd be another side note, so here it is. Do not be fooled. Startups are not easy. You just imagine something up and roll with it. That's not the case. That's the backstory that you see the success. However, the actual one, it's a roller coaster. Understanding, getting inspired, ideating, testing, meeting obstacles, getting funded when investments are 90% made by men, all on the road from idea to product. So that means it's going to be topsy-turvy. So why women's health? Well, as you heard, women are 51% of the population. We are 51% of the population. But guess what? We are physiologically different, period. And not only in period health, as you heard today on the stage, but almost in every single other aspect of women's health, we are very different. And yet, we are underserved despite being the majority. We are not many men. But still, in the age of technological integration and personalization, when we thought, what's the problem? You just gather the data, cross-section it, and then you have personalized medicine for women, right? Wrong. There is no data. Investment, research, and innovation is lagging far, far behind. Did you know that investment in women's health makes up less than, are you ready for this number? Less than 2%. 2% of the funding in healthcare and research is on women's health. Only in the last 30 years is it mandatory in clinical trials for women to be included. Even the lab rats were male. The lack of women-specific healthcare solution has led to misdiagnosis and delayed treatment. Women are pushing back against that, and we're on a mission to change that. So as a woman in 2024, and people sometimes say to me, Michal, why do you make that slide so you can't read the word woman? That's on purpose. So as a woman in 2024, and this is not to depress you because we're on the way to do good, you're more likely to die in a hospital from a heart attack and have on average 42.5 minutes delay to first medical contact. Why is that? For many reasons. It has to do with gaslighting when you arrive. Oh, you're hysterical, go home. Even the new AI that they've created, and there's a really good AI company working on discovering if you're having cardiovascular disease. Even the new AI that they've created has a bias towards men, and two people with the same symptoms, the woman will be told to go home and the man will be told to go to the ER. Unacceptable. If you have autoimmune disease, it will take you 4 to 10 years to diagnose, consulting with at least 4 doctors. In the UK, almost 1 million women left their jobs last year due to menopause symptoms. How is this okay? And the list goes on, and this is just to name a few. And as you can see, it's well referenced. We didn't make any of this up. So we were asked, why are you doing women's health? Why don't you do beauty? We were told, I don't invest in that niche. Niche? How is 51% of the population a niche? So now there's no choice, right? We have to solve it. We found this unbelievable, huge challenge, not a small one, and loads of challenges, because when you say women's health, it covers almost everything that has to do with your life. So we asked ourselves, how could we tackle the many pressing problems in women's health to create better outcomes for women worldwide. Why? Because our DNA says we're not only going to look here, we're going to go times 10. And that's also, if you listen to the beginning of the story, part of my ingrainment at home was you got to look worldwide. You got to do better for this place that we're on for a short time. So we researched and looked for the best way to create aligned, accurate, and scalable solutions that would shorten the time to market. We needed to create a method that was problem-centric, starting with a problem to ensure best and right solutions, because how many times have you been solving the wrong problem or the problem that's next to it, and it's wasted so much money? We don't have time for that. Women's health is lagging so far behind. What were we told in the previous panel? 300 years? Oh my God, no. We're cutting that down. We're not waiting 300 years. So we needed to create this method, and we really understand that there's no time to waste. And out of that birthed Impact.51, the world's first and been time, in the meantime, the only startup studio to exclusively address women's health. There are actually 860 startup studios worldwide dealing in many different issues in tech, but we're the only ones doing women's health. In a nutshell, what do? We build startups from validated unmet needs where innovation is needed most, not one startup, many startups. We zoom into the unmet needs of women, look where innovation is needed most. Guess what? Innovation in women's health is very low. There's something like 1,600 femtech companies worldwide, which is nothing. It may sound like a big number, but it's really, really nothing. Israel, by the way, is in 6th place worldwide, but it's still, we're far from it everywhere. We take entrepreneurs that are pre-team and pre-idea. We also recognized the market potential. You are business leaders, so you understand numbers. Women control most of healthcare spending. Did you know that? 85% of healthcare spending in the household is done by women. And still, as I said, less than 2% of the funding is there. We also noticed that, that the CAGR that we're speaking about by 2030 will be reportedly a double digit and will be $100 billion by 2030. And I should also say, oops, this is how you go back, sorry. I should also say that it's a $1.1 trillion market potential. It's sitting there on the wall, it's a no-brainer. So why don't they invest, right? Why aren't men investing in women's health? They should be. You should also note that it's a new nascent space. 60% of femtech startups were generated in the last 5 years, which means it's a really exciting space to go into because it's raw territory. And of course, it's aligned with the SDGs, which you just heard about in the previous panel, of reducing inequality, gender equality, good health and well-being, of course. Now you go this way. Okay, so this is my partner, Michal Lebenthal. Together, we have Impact.51, as we said, by women, for women. We provide that, we fell in love with the problem, immersed ourselves in the field, found an innovation model that I told you a little bit about. We're female founders. We have very diverse background and skills and an entrepreneurial DNA. And actually, we provide the tools, network access, and knowledge. We bring together the ecosystem. Actually, we create it because it doesn't exist in women's health. We ideate on solutions and build on the best ones. We're on a problem-led mission. And we began with menopause, that really sexy time. We discovered a double bottom line. First of all, we start with challenge partners. That means we work with the best hospitals in Israel. We work with HMOs and patient organizations. Then we ideated. We had 48 entrepreneurs, 46 of which were women, and 2 brave men. And they worked in 11 teams. The 2 best and right startups were chosen to move into our foundry. They receive pre-seed funding, and we work with them till Series A, which means we keep funding them until they get out there. We bring mentorship, expertise, and talent. We now have 2 companies in the foundry and 6 companies in the ideation phase that are currently working. Over 5 years, we'll have 9 ideations, choosing the 2 best and right, and finally 14 companies. So if you're doing the math, you should be like, wait, Michal, why did you say 14 and not 18? Well, it's the startup world, and you know, some startups won't make it, but we need most of them to succeed. So our next cohort was supposed to be on cardiovascular health. It was set to publish on October 8th. And as I mentioned, I'm from Israel. So it took us some time to come together. And we thought, what will we do now? And cardiovascular health, well, cardiovascular health is the #1 killer of women worldwide. Our symptoms are very different. It's something very worthy that we need to go into, but we decided to postpone the discussion on cardiovascular health. And we decided to have a call for action for trauma, PTSD, and anxiety in women. But I want to tell you something. I want to tell you a personal story about Yehudit Weiss, and I also want to tie into what we were just talking about 1 second ago in the previous panel. So Yehudit Weiss was from Kibbutz Be'eri. Kibbutz Be'eri is a kibbutz in the periphery of Gaza, about a kilometer away, even less. On the 7th of October, she was abducted by Hamas into Gaza. In the many things that Israelis do is they love to volunteer. So one of the things that I do is I volunteer, aside from the companies that I run and my boys and whatever, I volunteer in the Hostage Families Forum. And I accompany 2 families. One of them is the family of Yehudit Weiss. Her sons went to the US for the rally. You may have seen there was a huge rally in Washington a couple months back. They were there for 48 hours. During that time, and Yehudit Weiss, their mother, had breast cancer. During that time, I reached out to all my network because I have a vast network. And I couldn't find one organization, one women's organization that would stand by us and say that a woman with breast cancer being held hostage should receive her treatment. Isn't it a no-brainer? It's a no-brainer. Not one women's organization. Upon their return, they received notification that their mother was killed in Gaza, and so we didn't continue looking for organizations that would stand by us on that topic. And I think, as sisterhood, as women in different places together, this is something very important that we should do for one another, is stand by. So as I said, we are going to the trauma initiative right now. We're in it. And it's happening on this current very difficult backdrop, which includes 19 of our sisters which are still in captivity. And I think that our strength as women, internationally as well, lies in our community and in our collaboration, in standing together. And we can't be equal worldwide until everyone comes home. So, emerging as a lighthouse for innovation in women's health, born from the tragedy of October 7th and its aftermath, we published Mission Resilience, After Mission Menopause, From Crisis to Growth, addressing trauma and PTSD in women. And our mission is to ensure growth and resilience by creating and scaling companies and services that address this. So actually, we're not only expanding startups, we're building women's resilience and post-traumatic growth. Okay. Alex, I need your help. If you're a woman in 2023, it'll take you between 4 to 10 years to be diagnosed on autoimmune disease. If you have a heart attack, it's 42.5 minutes delay till you get treatment, and the list goes on and on, almost in every single field we touched, and we thought this is unacceptable. And how could we change that?
Impact.51 is the first startup studio in the world dedicated solely in women's health. Our mission is to create systemic change in women's health. Despite comprising 51% of the world's population, women's health lags significantly behind, perpetuated by historical and persistent gaps in research and the underrepresentation of women in health studies throughout the years. We established Impact.51 in order to address and diminish this gap. We have often asked ourselves, how can we enhance women's health by tackling fundamental challenges and developing viable, relevant solutions. That's what Impact.51 is all about.
Women's health, it's a huge topic. We realize that we have to create the ecosystem first and then build companies in women's health. We start with identifying the most crucial unmet needs. Our approach is distinctly problem-led, focusing on well-vetted and clear opportunities. We tackle challenges that impact 51% of the population, emphasizing a proactive stance in identifying and solving for them. First, we sit with our challenge partners, like hospitals and patient organizations, and get the unmet needs from them. Then we have a call out for top-tier talent from around the world. We have successfully completed our inaugural cohort with 2 companies in the Impact.51 Foundry. Currently, we are in the process of raising our first round of funding. After the 7th of October, it took some time to come around and think, what do we want to do right now? We were ready to publish a cardiovascular health in women. We're working with top-tier hospitals in Israel, 3 of the best, and we were all set to go working with the ecosystem. Then came October 7th, and we thought, we can't do this, we have to wait. The call of the times is to work on trauma. We have decided to issue a call addressing trauma and PTSD in women. Heeding the current needs, our twofold mission will scale existing initiatives and create Phoenix companies out of the ashes. Something really special that happened was this coming together of everyone, volunteering. I think it has to do with a sense of belonging. It has to do with dedication and devotion to the place. It has to do with passion, which actually gives strength and resilience. That's how we work. That's our DNA. Women's health is not something that's only relevant because of a war or conflict. It's always relevant. And so we must persevere. We are on a mission to instigate systemic change in women's health, a field that has long awaited transformation. Our commitment remains steadfast as we continue to impact 51% of the population. So during these challenging times, I'll wait for you to put it back.
Nothing
No, not
is
yet,
impossible.
Not yet. I need the slide back. Okay. Thank you, Alex. Okay. So you've probably heard a lot about Israel being a startup nation. And during these challenging times, and despite them, actually, Israel tech ecosystem stands strong and proud. Businesses continue to serve and delight their customers as always. Resilience, it's not just a slogan. It's the enduring spirit that made Israeli tech what it is today. And I have to tell you about a very exciting initiative called nextoctober.org. You can Google it. And it's Izhar Shai, a prominent Israeli startup figure. He decided to do one for one. And what this is that he wants there to be, for each fallen family, person, soldier, etc., a new startup. It's a very optimistic move, and there's a long list of startups running, and each startup will commemorate someone who has passed. So actually now there's a move from Startup Nation to Impact Nation, and I spoke to you about purpose, and I think it's all about purpose to begin with. So I'd like to show you something about what's happening in the Startup Nation in Israel now. Okay.
Until we prove it's impossible.
Necessity has been the mother of innovation. It's in the core of our DNA.
We're helping to solve one of the world's biggest problems for our people and for our little blue planet.
If we're able to make meat on the moon, we can make meat in the middle of the desert or in the middle of the Antarctic.
We take carbon, which is one of the biggest problems today, and we make aviation fuel.
We create real dairy without using any cows.
We can save lives of hundreds of thousands of women every year.
Who would have thought it's possible to grow vegetables in the desert?
People are here because of their passion to have a meaning to their life, to help make a better world.
It's incredible to watch the vision become a reality.
Our technology is a game changer.
I'm proud to be part of Impact Nation, bringing women's health initiatives to the world.
I'm proud being part of Impact Nation.
I am proud to be a part of Impact Nation.
I am proud to be part of Impact Nation.
This is our biggest dream, and this is going to change the world.
I'm inspired by the Israeli entrepreneurs that have been working and continuously and tirelessly rising up out of the ashes and moving on. And finally, I'd like to leave you with one of my favorite quotes by Louisa May Alcott for some inspiration and optimism. Far away there in the sunshine are my highest aspirations. I may not reach them, but I can look up and see their beauty, believe in them, and try to follow where they lead. Thank you.